Using your heart rate can be such a valuable tool to guide your running training and get the most out of your body. I have been using heart rate data in my training for 20 years and I really see the value in it. But as a coach, I see so many making some crucial mistakes when it comes to using heart rate to guide their training. In this video, I'll go through the 5 most common mistakes and how to fix them to get the most out of your heart rate based training. The first mistake that I see so many people do when using the different heart rate zones to guide their training intensity is not knowing what their actual maximum heart rate is. Then your heart rate training zones will not be correct either, and a lot of the value of using this tool to guide your intensity in different training sessions are lost. But still, a lot of runners I meet haven't done a maximum heart rate test. And many just rely on the common formula to calculate your maximum heart rate, which is taking 220 minus your age. But I have found that this can be very inaccurate. Just like all people are of different heights, the individual variability of what your maximum heart rate is differs a lot from person to person. So I really think that more people should do a maximum heart rate test because it's completely free and really simple. Or I mean, it's hard, you have to push yourself hard, but it's not a complex thing to do at all. One way to do it is just to run a shorter running race, like a 5K for example, and really push yourself to the limit the last kilometer to the finish. Running races like this is when I have managed to hit my highest heart rate, because it can be quite hard to push yourself to the absolute max when you're not in a competition setting. But if you want to do it more like a test, you can of course do that as well. My favorite way of doing it is to have a 20-minute progressive warm-up, running slowly in the beginning, then increasing the speed without getting super tired by the end of the warm-up. Then start the test with 3 times 3-minute intervals with 2-minute rest, where you run harder and harder, but still feel that you have a bit more to give after the last interval. And after the last 2-minute rest, the real test starts. And here you do a 6-minute interval where the first 3 minutes are progressive and the last 3 minutes you just run as hard as you physically can. And preferably you end this interval in an uphill to give you the best chance to really hit your maximum heart rate. So of course it is hard to push yourself like that, but I recommend you to do it to get to know your real maximum heart rate, and it can also be quite rewarding to push yourself really hard once in a while. I will for sure not be reaching my maximum heart rate today. I've been struggling a bit with some Achilles pain after a recent ultra marathon that I ran, but it's going better and better. So it's really nice getting back into training again. So this run is just an easy run, and on a run like this I just use my heart rate to make sure that I run easy enough and make sure that the heart rate stays down, which is actually the most useful thing I think you can use your heart rate for, making sure that you don't push too hard in the sessions that shouldn't be too hard. But in order to do this well, you can't do the next mistake that I will talk about. The next mistake is relying on inaccurate technology. Although it's a great thing that most new watches do the heart rate monitoring on the wrist because of how easy and accessible it gets, wrist heart rate monitoring will never be 100% accurate. And especially if you don't have your watch tightly strapped and run fast, it can give you some misreadings. For a long time, the golden standard for measuring your heart rate has been using one of these like heart rate chest straps. And I really want my heart rate data to be 100% reliable when I train. So I've been using a strap like this, and it's been a bit of a hassle because it's not that comfortable to wear. And thanks to the sponsor of this video, Coros, I don't have to use this anymore to get precise heart rate data. I'm really happy to partner up with Coros for this video because their new heart rate monitor that I'm wearing here is a game changer for me. I'm so glad to finally not have to use that uncomfortable chest strap. With the Coros heart rate monitor, you just place it here over your biceps, and since it's so lightweight and comfortable, you quickly forget that you're even wearing it when you're out running. but you still get really precise heart rate readings. I have now paired it together with my Pace 3, which works great, but you can actually pair this with any running watch or smartwatch or even smartphone. So if you really want to be able to trust your heart rate data when training, I recommend using this. And thanks a lot to Coros for sponsoring these videos and creating these great products for us runners. One of the big downsides of using heart rate to control your intensity in training is the lag associated with a change of effort. For example, if you run 3-minute intervals and run them hard, your heart rate will look something like this. Climbing, getting higher through the interval until you start the rest. Although you put in the same effort here at the start, it's only at the end of the interval your heart rate is starting to match that effort. So, especially when running shorter intervals, it is better to use your pace, your effort pace, or perceived effort to guide your intensity, since the heart rate will be a lot lower in the beginning part of the interval. And if you just look at the time spent in the different heart rate zones after a workout with short intervals like that, it can give you a quite false indication of how hard the workout actually was, because your muscles work as hard here in the beginning part of the intervals as in the end part of the intervals, but the time spent in these higher heart rate zones becomes quite little. You know that quote that comparison is the thief of joy, and this is so true when it comes to all aspects of running as well, and especially when it comes to heart rate. You shouldn't compare to each other. As I said earlier, your maximum heart rate and how your heart works differs a lot from person to person. And that one person has a lower heart rate at the same pace doesn't necessarily mean it costs them less effort. So the important thing, if you're going to use your heart rate as a tool in your training to guide your intensity, is to know how your own heart rate works. For example, what is really zone 2 training for you? And as I said earlier, the most important thing you can actually use your heart rate for is controlling that you don't run too fast on those easy runs. Although using heart rate can be a really great tool, you shouldn't rely blindly on it to guide your intensity and stop listening to your body's signals completely and how you actually feel. The thing is that there are many things that can affect your heart rate. For example, if it is really warm outside, your heart rate will be elevated because your heart is also working to cool down your body. The time of day can also affect your heart rate, and if you have drinking coffee or taken any sort of caffeine, that will also affect your heart rate, making it higher. And a really important thing to be aware of is that race day nerves will for sure affect your heart rate. I see many people starting out races and looking at their heart rate to try to control the intensity, and then becoming really stressed that the heart rate is higher than it usually is on these paces. And that is completely normal because of the stress and nerves that are associated with starting a race. So especially for the first part of races, I would not recommend just looking at your heart rate to try to control your intensity. Then it's better to use a mix of the pace you're running on and of course your perceived effort. The best thing is if you can learn the feeling you're supposed to have in the beginning stages of a race. Thanks again to Coros for sponsoring this video and supporting my channel. If you want to check out their heart rate monitor and all their great running watches, there's a link in the description. Train smart, have fun, and I will see you in the next video.